Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Thursday. I am super excited for you to listen to today's interview with Dr. Pierre Kory. He is Dr. Pierre Kory of America's Frontline Doctors. As you probably know him, he has been on several podcasts talking about the benefits of ivermectin. This is a controversial topic. It's probably going to get us taken off YouTube because you're not allowed to talk about this. So I have to say this disclaimer. The content of this clip does not provide medical advice. Please seek the advice of local health officials for any COVID-19 and or COVID vaccine related questions and concerns. I know that you're going to appreciate this conversation though, because he is very knowledgeable. He has been treating patients for the entire pandemic. He has a lot of experience, and he's not just going to tell us about ivermectin, what it is. Is it just horse dewormer? He is going to bust some myths about it that have been perpetuated by the media. And then we're going to uncover some of the corruption that we are seeing in our public health bureaucracies. And I'm super excited for you to learn from him. So without further ado, here is Dr. Pierre Kory. Dr. Kory, thank you so much for joining us. I know a lot of people, myself included, have been following you for a very long time. People in my audience know who you are, but in case there are a few people who don't, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Dr. Pierre Kory, and I am a lung and ICU specialist. And I'm also the president and chief medical officer of an organization. We're a nonprofit organization of 5 sort of experts in our field in critical care medicine, ICU medicine, who got together, and our only mission was really to create the most effective treatment protocols for COVID-19. And we've done that, and we've just tried to disseminate the efficacy and knowledge around them. I've been at this fight for so long that I've stopped mincing words, and I just call it like I see it.
Go for it.
And I'll let history be the judge. But I've had a front row seat to the science and how it's been distorted. But this conflation with horse paste is an absolutely egregious, concerted, and actually pre-planned action. You're actually watching a PR campaign unfold. It's what's called disinformation tactics. And they've been long employed by corporate interests when science is inconvenient to their financial interests. Okay. And so the disinformation tactics were first developed and absolutely used to incredible effect by the tobacco industry for 50 years. And you're actually seeing those tactics play out again with ivermectin. And they are absolutely expert. There's billions of dollars behind that effort. They have one goal. They have to suppress ivermectin. And so they called it a horse dewormer. They put out misinformation about poisonings and people going to the hospital, which were quickly debunked. But it's very hard to roll back in a lie. And then you had the entire media calling ivermectin a horse drug, when it's actually, the discoverers won the Nobel Prize for eradicating 2 globally endemic diseases, which absolutely elevated the health status of massive amounts of low and middle income countries. It was so profound, the impacts on public health, that they won the Nobel Prize. It's a human drug.
You're talking about the corruption of these pharmaceutical industries colluding with, well, this is me saying this is not you. It seems like they're colluding with the federal government. They're colluding with people like Fauci. They're colluding with the media to try to suppress information about ivermectin. But why? I mean, we've been told that these 3 entities so care about our health. They're the ones that take the virus most seriously. And, they might call people like me COVID deniers, which is not true, for simply asking these questions. So what's behind it? If they really say that they care about our health, why are they suppressing the science on this?
So, Allie, the question is the answer. So let's just talk about the question, because I want to say that I have gone through this. I've said this before. I will never be the same man or physician in society again. And it's because what you've heard talked about in books, what you've heard intimated in articles about this concept of regulatory capture. And regulatory capture is when agencies, which are purportedly have the primary mission of the public health of its citizens, are captured by those with other interests, like financial. And that's been well described. I mean, you can go to any university in this country and you can take classes on the topic of regulatory capture. I mean, I'm not the one inventing it.
Right.
And you would think, I kind of make this joke, although nothing's funny, but I almost might feel like, okay, the normal state of regulatory capture, now that we're in a pandemic and societies are being cratered around the world, okay, boys, can you take a break on the regulatory capture for a bit till we get the ship righted and then you can go back to business as usual? What I found out was that the opposite is true. The regulatory capture has reached absurd and humanitarian crisis levels. They are rapacious and they won't stop. And so when you say that these agencies have public health as their primary purpose, I went into this pandemic fully believing that. I mean, everyone assumes that the guidance that comes out of the agencies is based on the best available science by the best experts, who the top of their fields who are in that. That is simply not true. Those are Byzantine bureaucratic organizations. I would say the majority of people in them are very committed to what they do. I would say they are principled, they are expert, they try to do the best job. Where I feel that it's rotten is it's rotten at the top. You don't get to lead agencies where at the head of a massive biomedical industrial complex, literally a biomedical industrial complex where billions of dollars are at stake. You don't get to lead those agencies if your primary purpose is the public health of the citizens. And that's what I've had to learn. You get there because you know how to cooperate, work with, and essentially become influenced by pharma. And so I just have to say that the question is the answer. You're asking, like, why would the agencies do this if their primary purpose and primary mission is to elevate and maintain the public health of the citizens? As a physician, I used to believe that, and I cannot accept that question because it's just false.
Wow. So what you're saying is these agencies, the CDC, I'm guessing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, CDC, WHO, the NIH, and the heads of these organizations are what? They're in bed with pharma because they are also trying to achieve the goal of pharma to just make profit. And that's why they're focusing almost exclusively on the vaccine. And they're not interested in something like ivermectin because ivermectin doesn't make them money. Like, is it mostly a profit motive?
It's clearly a profit motive. It's a career motive. It's how you keep your job.
How is that? Can you explain that? Like, how does Dr. Fauci benefit from, being in bed with pharma?
Ooh. So if you want me to do a psychological analysis of Dr. Fauci, I also have to, I have to reach the limits of what I can say to an accurate fashion. So yes. My last answer is really based on the fact that I find it, as someone who analyzes problems, who's a problem solver, who looks at data, makes conclusions, based on the data and the behaviors, the only conclusion I can reach is that they are non-scientific objectives that are being pursued. Non-scientific objectives, which are financial or policy, okay? But they're not based on science, period. Right. Now, when you ask me, how does that work? Why would they behave that way? What are their interests? Well, the two main interests that I've seen in the behavior of masses of physicians and public health officials, the main incentive is to remain employed. If you speak up, if you challenge what is clearly forces that are saying, we need to do this, which is, for instance, if you've ever heard of the term the noble lie. So the noble lie was actually first described by Plato. And by the way, if I'm going too much into rabbit holes here, you just let me know. We'll get back to it.
It's great.
But What I think is happening with this pandemic is the agencies are employing what are called noble lies.
Mm.
I have a lot of trouble calling them noble anymore. But the noble lie is a lie in which it's used to further a higher purpose. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you choose to view ivermectin as an enemy of this mass vaccination policy, as an impediment, as something that will disturb it, then you can convince yourself and you can go to bed at night that you participating in attacks and suppressing ivermectin is for a higher goal. That, by the way, that is the most kind interpretation I will ever come up with. Going back to like how they do it, some of it is noble lie. I think they're trying to further policies, so they suppress ivermectin.
Yeah.
But what I really think is you don't get to the top unless you know how to play well with pharma. And if you promote and advance and approve a repurposed drug in lieu of these massive profit makers, so what I believe is this Pharmageddon and ivermectin, which occurred since August, where you saw through the media, the newspapers, the CDC putting out their cautious bulletins, the FDA attacking it as a horse drug and unsafe, the state departments of health following suit, all the academic medical societies jumping in. What you're seeing is actually the structure of a system. And you see the awesome power of those agencies, because when they come out with a recommendation, literally you see everyone follow suit. Like the societies, they're dependent on federal research dollars. They're all researchers.
Yeah.
If they speak up or fight that central narrative, what happens to their research career? What happens to their institutional funding? Nobody can speak. They want to remain employed and they want to preserve their careers. And so when you ask me about incentives, that's so much what I've seen. The paucity of whistleblowers on this is absolutely historic.
I never really thought about the pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, I know that any big bureaucratic system has its corruption, has its profit motives. Of course, I'm a conservative, and so I'm always skeptical.
That was me.
Right. Yes, I'm skeptical of big bureaucratic institutions anyway, but I never thought about it. I never thought about vaccines or anything like that. But I'm sure there are a lot of people who were willing to accept anything that the CDC had to say, because why not? I'm not a scientist, who now find ourselves skeptical of everything they say and everything they do, because to me, they have just shot their trustworthiness so much that even if they came out and said something that is true, like that's, I think, a huge risk. That even if they did come out and say something that the public does need to believe that is scientifically true, you have millions of people who won't believe them because it seems like everything has been so politicized and ascientific, especially when it comes to things like masking 2-year-olds. And we've yet to see the data on that. Is that a fear of yours, that people are just going to not trust actual science?
Allie, that's not only a fear. I believe it's a reality. And it's also what we've long predicted, because we've seen the behaviors not being scientific and clearly ruled by other and the other. Yeah. So what you just said is really alarming to contemplate, because what you just said is totally accurate. We're now at a place where, you said a lot of your listeners, a lot of people you talk to are skeptical. And I love it. Like, I got to tell you, everything that you said is like, you're describing me in this journey. Like, I used to think, I've read lots of books in college. Yeah, the system's corrupt. There's influence. Like, I always knew it was there. And like, but it was, I don't know, subtle, theoretical. I didn't realize like just how powerful and rapacious it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I told you I will never be the same again. What I've seen and what I've learned is absolutely, again, I can never look at the world again. But when you ask, like, first of all, based on that litany of behaviors and inaccuracies and doubling down on policies which are clearly failing, ineffective, and likely harmful, you have to be skeptical. In fact, if there's one lesson I would say, be as skeptical as you can. Ask for source data. Look for source data. Go to the people who actually are looking at source data. And I got to tell you, where I find the most accurate information? It's really on independent podcasters who don't work for large corporate media organizations. They're only allowed to really publish narratives. And, if you look at like people like Chris Martenson on Peak Prosperity, or like Crystal and Sagar and Jimmy Dore, like, there's really people who give very credible, objective looks at all the data, and I just find like that's where the accuracy. I would be very skeptical of what's coming out of large institutions. You can no longer believe that really has your best interest at heart.
So if they want to support you and your organization, how can they do that?
Just go to our website. We have a donate button. We appreciate the support because I almost joke when I say this, but we're not a big organization. We're running at full tilt, and we're literally up against, you can't even calculate what those financial interests are that are really want to suppress early treatment signs.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know that you're super busy, like you said. Thanks for taking the time to come on our show, and we'll make sure to include those links so people can support you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allie.